Girl series. My name is Simone, and let's just get right into the recap. I watched my recap from the previous outfit and things, and I noticed that I was extremely tired, and so I was like, let me just shoot it now that I have a little bit more energy. Maybe this weave will give me some oomph to get through this. I also recognize that I think that I've grown so much in the past 2 years that I don't even like care anymore. And I don't know if like maybe the church people that still go there prayed against me where I wouldn't have the energy or the motivation to do this anymore. But I definitely feel like I've come to a point where I have more compassion for them, and I'm not as like, I don't know, like saucy with an attitude anymore. So this season might be a little bit boring, but I do have some juicy parts. But I'm noticing that I don't, like, my feelings aren't the same anymore. Like, I still think that what they did and what they are doing is very wrong, and I'm disappointed still, and I still feel disillusioned to an extent. But I guess I have so much going for me in regards to my future and things that I'm looking forward to that they're becoming irrelevant. But I promised you guys that I would push through and give you the details of my experience so that if you know someone who's going through something similar, you can let them know to tune into my videos. Like, I'm no longer like, at first I was really excited about likes and stuff and views and things like that because I was hoping to maybe be monetized and then maybe change the world somehow, create affordable housing. But that didn't happen. So now my main focus is just getting the content out at this point and really just getting through the storyline, because it is a really good story despite all the trauma. But anyways, so let me get to the recap, okay? So, Viva Las Vegas, again, September 2nd, well, a year prior to September 2nd, 2007, Pastor had been preparing us, telling us that God said that we were going to build a church somewhere. So we were already prepared to move somewhere. And then a year later, September 2nd came, and they were like, we're moving to Las Vegas. And we were like, yay! And so we celebrated. We did this whole like youth day surrounded by Las Vegas. We had t-shirts, the whole nine. And little did I know that we were literally moving in 2 months after that. But I thought, like, okay, we know where we're going now, so now we're gonna like slowly prepare to move to this new city, you know, like prepare meaning like, I don't know, save up money to move, you know, just, I don't know, normal things you do when you move across the country. So they announced that, and then in October of 2007, we went to, they called it a spy trip. And so basically they called it a spy trip because it was like a biblical reference to two guys. I think it was Joshua and Caleb. Don't quote me because I have not read the Bible in years. But I think it was Joshua and Caleb who spied the land in the Bible. So it was a biblical reference. So we took a spy trip to Las Vegas in October 2007, and we went to a job fair that was at the Texas station. So I had no idea, now that I think about it, and I didn't mention this before, but this was literally the last time that I was gonna like see a lot of saints who I was used to seeing like every single day at church. And so almost all the saints that wanted to go to Las Vegas, which was the majority, even if they didn't want to go, everybody flew out to Las Vegas to go to this job fair. Primo suggested that I apply for this Head Start program, which literally became like a saving grace for the next 5.5 years, because that was where I was employed, which was from that job fair. So I'm very grateful to the Head Start program in Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you so much. So we went to the job fair. We had a great time. Everyone's excited, you know, everything's just going great. And so then I'm like, okay, job fair, you know, but still I didn't think that we were moving anytime soon. Like, I just didn't think that. And so then maybe like 2 weeks after the spy trip to Las Vegas, they announced that we were moving to Las Vegas. So like within 2 weeks. And so I was just like confused, but like still in this kind of like stupor, because I was like, you know, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I'm supposed to go. And I just have to be a part, you know, and I had to be a part of the first group to go, because Prima had always said that basically you weren't really spiritual, or you didn't really believe, or didn't have a lot of faith if you didn't go when they went. So, you know, I had this like special instruction basically from her saying that, you know, you're not really a true son and daughter of pastor and first lady unless you actually leave with them, which was November 5th, which happens to be Jester's birthday. So November 5th, 2007, that is when we took off to go to Las Vegas. Now, when they had announced that we were actually, the 2 weeks prior, that we were actually gonna move there, the first thing I did, for some reason, I had grabbed my laptop, and these are just some more details that I didn't give to in the first Viva Las Vegas video, but I grabbed my laptop, and the first thing I did was apply for college. And I don't even know why. Like, I remember taking my laptop in Lansing, Michigan. We were at church, and right after church, like, we would kind of like socialize and mingle and things like that. And so I had my laptop because I was in school at the time, and I just set up shop in the church bookstore, and I applied for college. I remember putting my credit card number in to pay for the application fee, which I think back then was like $60. And I was like literally serious about making sure that I was enrolled in school. Like, and I don't even know where I got that from, but literally education was my outlet. Education is what got me to where I am today. And so I'm just extremely grateful. I have tons of student loans, but at the same time, like, I would not be where I am without my education. And so if any young people are watching out there, you don't necessarily have to go to college, but make sure you do something like a trade or something, just so that you can have a career, because it literally changed my life. So applied for college. Somehow Giovanni found some cheap tickets or something. And I remember sitting on the stairs with him. There was like some church stairs that led to the balcony. And so he was like looking for tickets, and I was like, can you get my ticket too? You know, and because he was so benevolent, I think he got my ticket, because it was me, him, and I believe Lily that flew to Las Vegas like with one suitcase. And so, of course, I know I did. I paid him back. So he was like my lender. And so that was a highlight for me at that time, because I had this extremely huge crush on Minister Giovanni, and so was very grateful for him during these like very pivotal transitional times. So once I got my ticket, thanks to Giovanni, I put in my 2 weeks notice at my part-time job for Lansing Community College. I was working in the purchasing department with lovely coworkers and staff. They were just the best people ever, so I missed them a lot. And I withdrew from my classes. I was actually failing a human anatomy class, which I didn't know. I had never failed a class prior to that class, so it was very culture shock for me. But that was like me saying, well, I had said to myself, oh, this is God, you know, that I'm gonna drop this class because I need to go to Las Vegas. Like, this is a sign. I'm not passing. But truth be told, I didn't really probably have enough time to study. And we'll get more into that too, in regards to when I started school in Las Vegas, how, you know, there wasn't a lot of support and I didn't have a lot of time to do much. So we'll get there. So yeah, I did all of that, put my 2 weeks in, withdrew from my classes, and then I was on a plane to Las Vegas. And if you guys do remember, I did mention that I moved in with one of my lovely sisters named Chica. I said she was 15 years older than me, but I guess she was only like 8 or 9 years older than me. So I don't know why I thought she was older, but she was very mature. And so she had a 2 months free move-in special with these new apartments. It was a new development. And so I moved in with her. and it was like a month and a half that I stayed with her. We had to pick up our cars from a car transporter. So everybody got their cars put on this big truck, and I think it was like $1,000 a pop. That was the rate that they were doing. And so people put their cars on this truck, and the cars were shipped to Las Vegas. So my mom, again, she was a 4, so I was super shocked that she was coming. But my mom packed up all of our stuff, and she ended up riding the Greyhound bus to Las Vegas so that she could bring some of her things like dishes and things in boxes, because Greyhound allowed you to put things in boxes and bring boxes and suitcases with you. So it was like kind of like a freebie. And if you wonder where we got the rest of our stuff, so I have an uncle who we love very much, but he works for a car dealership that test drives cars. And so every time he would drive from Michigan to Las Vegas, that just happened to be one of his drop-off places. He would bring he would fill the car up with my mom's things. And then also a lot of our stuff got sold. So all of our furniture got sold, and my aunt and uncle actually, bless their hearts, they kind of went to my mom's house and they basically went through her stuff and took whatever they wanted to have, and then also just sold a lot of things since we weren't able to basically get to go back. Basically, I didn't even have like the financial resources to go back to go back to Michigan to take care of things. Like, honestly, I don't think I had went back to Michigan until probably 2012, I want to say, when my grandmother had passed away. So literally like 5 years, I believe. So yeah. So I got my mom's car off the transporter and had her car for about 3 weeks until she got in. When she got in, I moved from Chica's house and I moved with my mom. Definitely felt a lot more secure being with her, because that was where I was used to being, you know. But little did I know that my mom's financial situation had dropped drastically. And so that was my mom. I was used to like, mom's gonna fix it, mom's gonna take care of it. But really, that wasn't the case. We literally became like on the same turf, which was like culture shock a little bit. And so I think I had mentioned, I'm not sure if I mentioned before, but my mom had a hard time finding a job that was comparable to what she was making in Michigan. So when she finally got to Las Vegas, we packed up her car with all her boxes and things. And then my grandmother had a friend that lived out here in Las Vegas. And so we stayed with her for 2 weeks while we looked for an apartment of our own. And so we got the apartment. I think we only got like a 1-bedroom, and we were sleeping on air mattresses. Same thing at Chica's house. Like, it was an empty apartment with air mattresses. And I never thought that it was weird at all. I just thought that like, this is like our story, this is our journey, and we're doing this in the name of God so that we can see miracles and things like that. So even though this was like very janky, I never complained. Like, I was just very grateful to be a part of this like super cool experience, basically. So it was like cool to me, even though it was like there was a struggle involved. And so one thing that I did notice about being here, like one of the first differences, was that the air was super dry. So my skin was like super duper 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 itchy, to the point where I was like bleeding because it was so dry. So I had to literally like try different lotions, which I never had a skin problem before in Michigan because it's very moist in the air. It rains a lot. There's the Great Lakes. There's a huge difference. So I was like scratching all the time, and Lily and Joy were laughing at me because I was like, are you guys itching? Like, what is going on? Another thing that I noticed as well is that my hair was having a hard time. And I don't know if it was just due to stress or what, but my hair was falling out, which honestly led me to start my natural hair journey, which we'll talk about that as well, because natural hair wasn't really accepted at the church, so it was really difficult to go through that process. But the air was so dry in Las Vegas that having a perm just didn't seem conducive to the climate, and so stopped getting a perm. Rewind back to when my mom got here. So we got an apartment and I got the job that Prima had recommended to me. Got the job working as a teacher's assistant for the Head Start program in Las Vegas. And it was really cool because I only worked 2 weeks in December. So that first 2 weeks in December I worked, but then I had the last 2 weeks off paid because of the holiday. So they paid us. So that was a blessing. So I was able to still kind of like just kind of recoup and kind of process, you know, the move and get things in order. So again, me and my mom stayed with a family friend until our apartment was ready, and we were in a 1-bedroom apartment with air mattresses. So fast forwarding, as we enter January 2008, everything, I don't remember anything like pertinent going on besides me getting in trouble a lot, which that will be the next video. I will explain all the times that I got in trouble with Prima, just for different various reasons. And honestly, they were innocent mistakes, but I didn't know. It just kind of set the tone for what Las Vegas was going to be. It was definitely different than Lansing. The vibe was just a little bit off. And so I was working full time. My mom, I believe she like picked up a job at Walmart or something. But again, she was just having a really hard time finding a job that was comparable. So her experience wasn't going the greatest. And then moving along, we get to about June 2008. And that is when I got laid off from my job because the company, so the Head Start program was switching contracts, basically. So basically getting under new management. And so all the lower staff were let go. And then the upper management, they kept. And so I guess you had to reapply for your job. So I reapplied, but that kept me out of work for the month of like June and July. I did not have a full-time job, and so I started working at temp jobs to try to, you know, make ends meet. But I guess the end of the month came and the first of the month came and I did not have my portion of the rent. And so I think back then the rent was like $9 something. These were like brand new apartments. And so I had seen an ad that said like get $400 and you can pay it back by payday, right? And so obviously this was a payday loan place, which I wasn't aware of. Like I was only 19 years old at the time, and my biggest focus was like I just need money to help pay the rent, right? So I went and got the money, got approved for the money. But I don't even remember anyone telling me like, hey, you need to pay this amount on this date. Like I had no clue, or maybe I was just so frazzled that I wasn't paying attention, but I don't remember that being communicated to me. And so long story short, when payday came, like I didn't pay the amount that was due. And so that was my first introduction to payday loans, which when we get to my finance video, you'll hear a lot about my traumatic experiences with payday loans. They are the devil. And honestly, since I've left the church, which will be 7 years, June 22nd, I believe. I left on Father's Day, but and I know the date kind of switches every year, but I left on Father's Day of June 2015. And I have never taken out a payday loan since, and that can just kind of testify to the type of environment that we were in. And I'm not going to blame them completely, but there were a lot of times where they would give you like this urgency of participating in certain things that we couldn't afford. And so I ended up taking out multiple payday loans, but we'll get to that. But that was my first one, was to help pay for rent. And so paid the rent. And then I think the next month came up and I still didn't have enough. And so we were short, basically. And so that was in July of 2008. And so this was like the first time that I had ever like almost experienced like eviction. Well, we did experience eviction. And I just put two and two together now that I'm talking about it, that this was literally within almost less than a year of being somewhere and already having like an eviction on my credit. And so the apartment was in my name and my mom's name. And so here we are, we both have eviction on our credit. So, which makes it even more difficult to try and find, to get an apartment. So now, mind you, I had never experienced this before in Michigan, like never. I came from a very stable home, thank God. My mom, she was a single mom, and she worked her, excuse my French, but she worked her ass off. And so we always had lights, we always had food, we always had shelter. And so this was really like, kind of like, whoa, okay. But again, like, while I was in it, I didn't never complain. I'm just like, okay, well, God's going to figure it out, or God's going to work it out. So my mom reached out to another lady that came out here as well. And she was a single woman and she was staying by herself. And so she asked her if we could stay with her. Now, mind you, all the saints staying together, like that was foreign in Michigan because everybody kind of had their own. Or at least they were with their families. But when we came out here, it was like maybe 5 families in one home. Like it was that type of thing, like people on top of each other in the same home, people who had never lived with each other in the same home, in the same apartment, roommating, doing all of these things in the name of God. So that's another thing to kind of point out. Everybody was just, clumping together to make ends meet and things like that. So it wasn't like everything was just made in the shade for us when we got here. No, it was a struggle, but nobody was really acknowledging it as a struggle. And so my mom, the lady, let us stay with her. And so she had a 1-bedroom apartment and we were staying in the living room on the floor. So we had air mattresses again and all of our stuff just in her living room, and it was very tacky now that I think about it. But yeah, so that's what happened. And then I will stop there because that is where it kind of starts, where I end up, because my mom wasn't able to find a job that was comparable. She ended up leaving and moving to Los Angeles, which is where my aunt lived, and she worked for my aunt for 5 years. So she was able to have like a consistent job under my aunt, who has her own business in Los Angeles. And so then that left me. Well, my mom actually didn't leave me first. I left her because Prima, I wanted to be around Prima. That was the whole point of us moving there, right? And so she, which we'll kind of get into it a little bit further, but they were still meeting up and having like little outings and stuff like the youth were with Prima. But it wasn't like she was like texting us and saying like, hey, we're meeting here. We would have to find out where she was going. And I was realizing like that I was being left out a lot. So I was texting like she said to text them. she had made up this rule where we had to text her by 11 o'clock on Saturdays in the morning. So I would text her at 11 o'clock, and then, you know, I wouldn't get a response. But then the next time we were at church, I would hear about like stuff they were doing. And I'm just kind of thinking like, well, how come, you know, I came out here November 5th, like, where are my rights? You know what I mean? Like, I came out here the same day that they announced it. So I felt like entitled to being a part of all these outings and things that she was doing, because she didn't just make them seem like they were outings. She made them seem like, you know, it was some great move of God. And I'm like, look, I moved all the way out here for these great move of God outings or whatever is going to take place. I want to be there. And I think if you remember before, that a lot of the times they would kind of share different stories of when God kind of met them was when there was like these small little gatherings of women. And so I mentioned in the previous season that there was a time when First Lady had a whole bunch of women and they were like on the beach in Florida or something. And she was talking about like God said that it's really important that we follow him. And then I guess they had seen in the sand, like they turned around or something, and it said, follow me in the sand. And so those were like very intriguing to me. And that was what I was after. So when Prima would say, or when I would find out that the other teens and young adults were having these outings, I'm like, I'm missing out on this possible like God experience. So that's like literally where my anxiety popped up a lot. And I'm getting anxious just thinking about it. So that was where a lot of the anxiety began, is because I constantly kept thinking that I was going to miss out on this, like, just a great move of God. Like, I just didn't want to miss it. Like, I didn't come all the way here to be missing stuff. So I found out that they were still doing stuff. And so I tried to like reach out to Prima and be like, hey, what the heck? Like, I moved here on November 5th, right? So where's my rights? You know, how come you're not letting me come? And so she came up with this excuse that it was because I lived far, which we didn't know like where the church was going to be, like where we were going to be meeting, having church. Like, we were just kind of trying out different places every Sunday, every Wednesday. And so everybody was kind of dispersed all over the city, just all over. And there's like different little like suburb areas in Las Vegas too, called Henderson, Southern Hills, which those are more expensive areas, Summerlin. So nobody knew where exactly, because we had just got there. So I was like, oh, okay. So I believed her. Like, I was like, okay, I'm too far. But I had a car. I got my first car in January of 2008. So, and when I got the car, I'll explain that next time because that has to do with Prima. But anyways, I had a car to travel and get to wherever she was meeting. Like, transportation wasn't an issue. So for her to say it was because I lived far, I didn't really understand that, but I was like, whatever, I'm gonna figure it out. So my goal was to try to move closer to wherever they were. Now, granted, she didn't tell us where she lived, but there wasn't a kind of an area that, you know, they would constantly meet. So it was like basically where the church resided over there, where we were renting to have church. And so I was like, well, I got to move. I got to get out of here because I cannot have anything messing me up from being in these little gatherings and missing my great moves of God. So, you know, me and my mom weren't like super close anyways. And we were in a 1-bedroom with another saint. So I was just like, let me just try to get out of here. So I don't even know how it came up, but one of the ladies on the praise team, she had mentioned that I could stay with them, her daughter and her, for $300 a month. And so that was definitely in my budget because I was only making like, I think my checks were like $741 every 2 weeks. I was making $750. And so And I forgot to say that I did get hired back with Head Start. It just was that 2-month break. So I did get hired back with Head Start August of 2008. So I'm going to put a pencil in it right now, and I'll see you guys soon. But I hope that this was a little bit more livelier and that you were able to follow. But again, I just think that my motivation is a little bit different now. I just don't. It is what it is. It's almost 7 years, and I'm just like, I got bigger plans and dreams. Like, forget them at this point. Like, I wish them well. I hope that they stop taking advantage of people, but like, I don't even care no more. But yes, we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.